Welcome to the Minx and Muse podcast. I'm your host, Crimson Minx, creatrix of Minx and Muse, a dark feminine playhouse where we awaken our innate magic through esoerotic dance and witchcraft. Welcome to the portal of enchantment. Welcome, Nicole Ricardo, to the Minx and Muse podcast. It's so good to have you on. How are you today?
Good. I'm so honored and excited to be on here with you.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's an honor to have you. So you are a long time member of our coven at the studio. You are also a paranormal investigator with the Real Ghosts of and Paranormal Parahouse. And you also lead witchy babes to create their own online businesses. So you are very well entrenched in all different aspects of the witchy world, the esoerotic world, and even like living this life as a career. You also are in our first ever Esoerotic Creatrix container, which is our mentorship group. And I've worked with you to help with our virtual studio stuff. So just all around a fabulous human that I've been excited to chat with. So I would love to start with the paranormal.
Ooh, okay.
We have been, Minx and Muse was a longtime sponsor of your paranormal investigations with the Real Ghosts of, and now Peculiar you're in. Tell us just, how about I hand the mic over to you? Tell us about all this paranormal stuff. When did it start? How's it going?
Yeah, oh my gosh. Well, paranormal stuff, I mean, I've always been interested in it. It's definitely one of those. I've been doing this since I was a kid. Like when I was growing up and I wanted a bedtime story, it was I want a ghost story. So I've been doing that for a very, very long time. But the podcasting and the official investigating really started actually I think it was just before 2020 or like right around all that, COVID lockdown era. But I had a friend who moved over to Austin. And up until that point, I didn't really have anybody who was also interested in paranormal things and would go do them with me. So when he moved over here, we went and did an investigation together. And I texted him, I'm like, so like scale of 1 to 10, would you be interested in starting a paranormal podcast? And he was like, 11. So, so we started the Real Ghosts of together, and he is the one who actually named it. Devin, he was my original kind of co-host with Real Ghosts of, but yeah, it was named after the Real Housewives, because we are both very sassy and opinionated. So, we, of course, as I really am a fan of bringing your actual personality into things and showcasing that. And so, especially in the paranormal, it tends to be everything's very serious and very scary. And we're going to go in with no lights. And, I'm like, I guess, like, sure, we'll do those things. But also, like, I might play Lizzo and twerk with the ghost. You know what I'm saying? We like to have a good time. So, yeah, we really wanted to make sure that that was incorporated and communicated through everything. But yeah, have been doing the Real Ghosts of. It's on a little bit of a hiatus right now, but I'm also doing things with Peculiar. I run that with Damien. So we have the podcast, and we also have a haunted museum in San Marcos, which is located inside of 666 Social. So yeah, we have the museum in there, and obviously we do investigations. We've been getting invited to do a lot of speaking as well recently. Like we just got back from West Tex Paracon. We're doing quite a few in the fall. Or October is already like mostly booked, which is insane because it's only May. But yeah,
Spooky
so
season, baby. People need to
yeah.
plan their spooky season in the spring.
Yes, it's wild. Spooky season. Spooky season for spooky people books up very quickly. So, yeah, those are the paranormal things.
Oh my goodness. I love it. And I love that you're representing femme in the paranormal world, because for those who, which I just feel like people who are interested in Minx and Muse are just interested in the paranormal. Like, we are a very crossover audience connection. And I feel like my experience with paranormal in the past is it's very masculine, right? And so
Yeah.
I love the new perspective you bring to it. I love that, because I also think we talk about the dark feminine a lot at the studio, and the dark feminine is the taboo. It's also like the psychic world, the mysteries. And so it does feel like paranormal should have more feminine energy represented within it.
Oh, I totally agree. And that's a whole rabbit hole that we could go down because yeah, even in like especially in the, paranormal world with like ghost shows and all of those things that are more mainstream popular, they actually scuttlebutt is they don't really like women being involved in that. Yeah, they definitely like it to be more masculine. And even if you go watch the shows, there are only a handful of women who are even involved in the shows. It is primarily very masculine, which is something that is insane to me because the majority of the viewership for these things are also women. So I'm like, that just doesn't make sense to me. Like, why would you not want to have more representation for those things, you know? So yeah, I totally agree with you. And I'm also, that is something that I'm super appreciative of when there are other women in the paranormal and women supporting women in the paranormal. Like Austin, we have our own horror fest here called Ethereal Horror Fest, and that is run by women. And every year except for the first year, because we didn't know each other yet, but like they've been bringing me in and involving us for the paranormal side of things. So we love women supporting women, and especially in the paranormal. Yeah, there should be way more of us.
I know they don't like them involved. Like, they could get hysterical, like, or what? I know, because it's the feminine, which is our intuition and it's our feeling and it's the darkness, and it just feels like, just kind of something that will absolutely evolve over time with society evolving in all the ways right now. But you being an original voice within it is amazing. Tell me about this haunted museum real quick, because we do have a lot of people who listen locally in Austin, and San Marcos is right around the corner.
Yeah. So yeah, we used to be located inside of the Velvet Casket, which is run by the Glass Coffin, but the I-35 expansion pushing everybody out. So, us, the oddity shop that was inside of there, the sticker shop that was inside of there, we all kind of moved together because we love each other so much. And we're all in San Marcos now. Yeah. In this little location called 666 Social, which is a really freaking cool spot. There's nothing else down there like that. It's basically a little gothic witchy coffee shop, and there's little bites to eat, and she has super comfy like chairs and couches everywhere. There's a ton of books. I do readings there. I'm actually going to be heading down there later today. So there's mostly always a reader there. We have the haunted museum inside of there. If you want to come visit us, we do events there as well sometimes. Like, we just had our very first come investigate the museum with us. I'm sure we'll be holding a seance, all the spooky things that we like to do. So if anybody has requests, let me know. But yeah, San Marcos, come check us out. It's a super cool spot. You can come hang out for the whole day. That's often what I do when I go down there, because I'm up in Leander right now, so it's, gosh, like a trek for me to get down there. But
Yeah.
it's a super comfy spot to come hang out and chill, and I'm really happy. I like it a lot.
Yeah, well, we had Wade Vetiver on earlier in the podcast a few months ago, and he has his shop out in San Marcos
Mhm.
too. And so that just feels like San Marcos may be a good place for a witchy afternoon. And he
Mhm.
just opened a bookshop there too. So lots happening. So you just mentioned readings.
Mhm.
Tell us about these readings.
Yeah, so I do whenever I do readings, I do psychic readings. So basically, whatever questions you have, come hang out. We'll go through all of them. I will tap into your guides, ancestors, whoever's around you to pull the most accurate information I can that will be delivered for your highest good. And I also do some mediumship mentorship. So if you would
Oh,
prefer to have a session doing that, where you're working on developing your abilities, you're working on your mediumship connection with spirit, any of that, we can dive into that too and really talk about, the things that you're currently doing, the areas that you're wanting to develop in, go through the things that have worked, haven't worked, because obviously everybody's different. Sometimes the main things that we're told to try just are not doing it for you. Um, give you some different exercises and homework so we can really help make sure that you are feeling super confident moving forward in that.
I love that. I love that you are interested in helping people develop their own psychic skills at the same time supporting them with your psychic abilities. Are you seeing a rise in interest in people actually wanting to do this for themselves?
Oh, yeah. I feel like, especially since 2020, and I'm sure you've seen this too with, witchcraft, witchy things. I feel like so many more people are interested in these things. And I feel like a lot of people are kind of having these like aha moments, especially like we're all empathic, we're all intuitive. I'm very much on the side of everybody can do this, everybody can be a
Okay.
medium. It's just a matter of practicing and being able to tap into these things, learning how to do that. And I feel a lot of people are now a lot more open to these things and realizing like, oh yeah, like a lot of this stuff, maybe all of that anxiety that I'm feeling is actually like maybe not my own, and it has to do with the fact that I'm in this really like stressful situation surrounded by a lot of people, and I'm starting to feel what they're feeling. Like, how do I deal with this? How do I block these things out? How do I protect myself from these things? I feel like a lot of people are just starting to um take control of these things. They're open to them, they're seeing them, they're noticing them, and they're like, okay, cool, like let's talk about this, which is great.
And you're seeing that energy, whether it's spirit world energy or human world energy, is all going to impact us. And that you weave those together? Because you mentioned that, okay, people are realizing that they're taking on other people's anxiety, for example, and having to learn to protect. You would protect the same way from, say, spirits?
Yeah, I mean, it's all energetic, like setting those energetic boundaries. I mean, of course, there's going to be the like outliers to that. Like if you're doing something like I do and you go somewhere like Hill House that has maybe like a demon in there, you might be a little like need a little different things for scenarios like that. But majority of people, you're probably not doing things like that. So yeah, once you learn those kind of basics, and those were like the first things that I learned, that's typically the first thing that I will recommend anybody to learn, is just really those like setting those energetic protections, barriers, learning how to protect yourself, also learning how to cleanse yourself and be able to remove those energies, because the other side of that is, yeah, sure, we can protect ourselves, but things are usually always going to get in anyway. So
Mhm.
also feeling confident and being able to know how to remove those things from ourselves as well, cleanse them from our energy field. But yeah, typically once you put those up, at least in my experience, it's going to kind of protect it from everything. It's like an all-purpose seasoning, if you will.
Keep the obnoxious ghosts out, but also your obnoxious neighbor's energy. I
Yeah.
like it. Yeah. And you know what? We always talk, and you've heard us in the studio talking about, this is why also having an embodiment practice and an intuitive practice is super important. Embodiment and intuition go hand in hand to me, but some people, if you're disembodied, you're disconnected from your intuition and you're not really understanding what energy is yours and what's someone's else. And once you kind of find that place of like embodied presence and can connect to your intuition more clearly, you're going to realize, oh yeah, I am taking on, this is not me right now.
Yes, 100%. It's a lot of awareness.
Yeah. And that's why also like for in the paranormal world, I just feel like, again, I just keep going back to some of these bros I've seen on these paranormal investigations, and they're all about in the mind. I need to use this tool that's going to go beep, beep, beep. And I need to rationalize and I need to capture it this way. And that's so the masculine logical way of going about things, and the feminine intuitive way about going things is going to open to a lot more like creativity in interacting with the paranormal world and feeling the paranormal world. So, and also having a witchy practice in general is going to make you a better paranormal investigator because you're going to understand energy. And yes, the idea of ritual to cleanse and to clear and to open, to connect all of these things. So,
Yeah, exactly. And that is one of the big reasons like Damien and I do so well investigating together, because we have very much the same philosophy in terms of, yeah, sure, sometimes the gadgets are fun and exciting and you get a beep and you're like, oh, that's interesting,
yeah.
but we are very much more about using ourselves and how that is our best investigation tool. That's actually literally the last talk that we did at one of these paracons was on that. And we do very much take a more esoteric approach to things. We have done stuff like rituals, and whenever I do, cleansings or making offerings to the spirits, right? All of these things that you would do in a typical witchy practice. Like,
Yes.
okay, it's literally the same thing. Like, we're doing spirit work. What are we doing when you're calling the directions and setting the circle? Like, you're doing all the same things in the paranormal. It's all spirit communication. So yeah, of course, we also want to like go in and leave offerings for them and do setting up these sacred spaces for the communication. Of course, that's gonna, make things a lot better, like get you better results, versus just setting out a bunch of, I don't know, toys and gadgets that flash and beep and being like, what's up, ghosts? Anybody want to set off some beeps? Like they're generally just standing there looking at you like you're an idiot.
Haha, like, don't you just want to say hello first? You don't want to just
Yeah, it's like, can you
Well,
wine and dine me a little bit first?
yes. Well, you did hint at it, the Hill House investigation. So I wanted to talk about that because you have done, I've listened to all of your podcast episodes, and you've done investigations all over the country. And it seems like there is going to always be different levels of paranormal activity. And it just happens that one of the most intense locations for paranormal activity, perhaps in the country, I would say, is in Texas.
Yeah, it is. Mineral Wells, Texas. Yes.
How far is that from Austin, by the way?
It's really not that far. It's about 3 hours, so not that
Okay.
bad.
So, yeah. So tell us, give us the quick, obviously you have to go listen to the podcast, go listen to The Real Ghosts of, is it on Paranormal now as well, this investigation?
Yeah, so all of the original stuff is
Or
on
Parapecular, excuse me.
yeah, all the original stuff is on The Real Ghost of, because I went there prior with Tony, who did The Real Ghost of with me for a long time. And then, Damien got interested and he started hearing about it because he does a lot of interviews on Parapeculiar and started hearing people talk about it. And, he had the spectrum of people being like, no, it's all bullshit, everything's fake, right? To people like me who are like, no, this shit is real and it is very intense. And it is very much one of those, like, you just have to experience it. And like, I very much realize that some of the stuff that happens there is so insane. It is unbelievable, right? Like, even when I talk about this stuff, I'm like, I wouldn't believe me. I'd be like, no, you're full of shit, you know? But no, it's not, you know, and especially like all of the energy stuff that we're talking about, like you can't fake energy, okay? Like that, you cannot fake that. Sure, you can fake a knock or a bang or whatever, but you cannot fake the when you walk into a room and you're like, holy shit, like I am not supposed to be here right now. You cannot fake that, you know? So yeah, I started going back there with Damien. It's been a bit of an obsession since then because yeah, like you said, it is wild. I have been to places all over the country. Some of the, you know, reportedly most haunted places. Like I've been to Alcatraz. I've hung out in morgues by myself in abandoned asylums. Like I've done all of these things, but none of them even compares to what I have felt and what I've experienced at Hill House. So yeah, we've been going down the rabbit hole quite a bit on that. Stay tuned. A lot of the research we've been doing, we're intending to put into a book.
Oh my gosh,
So,
that's amazing.
so yeah, but that place is wild. It is wild.
Yeah, you'll have to go listen to episodes, but you can feel people touching you, pulling at your
Mhm.
hair. You feel presence, you hear things. And they make you sign. Just
Mhm.
tell us about this waiver that you have to sign, which I'd never heard of before.
Yeah. So I mean, I've been places before that have waivers, but the waiver at Hill House, the activity here is so intense. So they have specifically all of the things on the waiver that you are signing. Like I'm releasing you from all of these things. They track all of the scratches. Okay, with scratches, you know that's the bottom of the barrel at Hill House. Okay, getting scratched, and it's I think like 500 something people have been scratched there now. I got scratched there once. But they have that. They have you are releasing them from liability for seizures, for heart attacks, for strokes, and even death. There have been, I want to say, 4 people now, and the owners, Sunny and Kathy, they have all of the numbers on this, but who have literally within 24 hours of leaving the house have died. Um, yeah, so it is definitely like we all know my motto is fuck around and find out. Okay. Hill House is not a fuck around and find out. That is not, I will never recommend that. 0 out of 10. Do not fuck around and find out. If you are a new paranormal investigator, do not go there. If you are a new, like somebody who's intuitive, sensitive, do not go there. Like it, yeah, it is intense.
Well, thank you for sharing that because I just wanted people to understand like the level of investigation you've got to. And I had no idea you were writing a book, and that's absolutely wonderful. And I will absolutely read that because it sounds like a really fascinating location and really interesting spirits, and not just ghosts are
Yeah.
there. There are other spirit entities there.
Yeah, I definitely believe there are. And that's one of the reasons why I keep going back there because it's just as somebody who does the, you know, more intuitive, like medium work and spirit communication, when I go somewhere and it's something that I have never experienced before in any of these other places, I'm interested, you know, I wanna
Yeah.
know what that is, and the big thing in Hill House that, you know, I keep going back and forth on is there a demon there? Is it a demon? Is it not a demon? I can tell you it is unlike anything I've ever felt anywhere else that I've been, and I've been a lot of places that people are like, "Oh, there's a demon," and I'm like, yeah, okay, you have like some little kid who's, you know, got little brother energy and is trying to scare people. Congratulations. Like, ooh, you demon. Like, no, you know, that's what most of those places turn out to be. But Hill House is, I don't know what it is, but it might be, I don't know, maybe it's something elemental, which is also interesting. So I don't know exactly what it is, but there's something there and it's definitely not human. I can tell you that.
Oh my goodness. Yes, that is something that I learned from listening to your podcast, that a lot of times when it's like there's an evil, an angry entity or ghost. It's usually like a little kid that's just like running around laughing, playing tricks, and just being a little toddler kid. And you've revealed that in numerous investigations, actually. So you can
Mhm.
never just assume. It's such a fascinating world, and I love how you have taken it from being just something that you had. It's like you were just. I've talked to you about this before, but you were engaging with spirits and ghosts before the paranormal
Mhm.
podcast. So this was something that was part of your life, and you were like, well, let's make it fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, essentially, even like the way that it came about was very much like kind of me like learning and growing and like testing my abilities and wanting to expand them. It was like it was the let's fuck around and find out, like, hey, what's gonna happen if we go to these haunted locations and let's see what I pick up on and see what the history is and see what matches up. Yeah, it was kind of like I just want to practice these things and like I'm gonna do it anyway because might as well record it. Maybe somebody else will find it interesting too.
Yeah, one of my favorite investigations you did early on, I think it was at a restaurant in Austin, and they had
Moonshine.
it could have been it was the kid, because there was this the staff, the patrons, everyone kind of knew there was this one ghost, and everyone had assumed it was, I think, like a woman, maybe. I forget. But like
Yeah.
what had happened was you were like, "No, there was a little boy who was run over by a car." And they were like, what? We have never heard that before.
Mhm.
And then, because like no one could corroborate this, I think Taylor, actually, your old partner, had
Mhm.
gone back, and she found a newspaper clipping of like around that date, that exact age that you
Yeah.
had picked up on, that no one else. So, like, I love that you were able to do that, and also having the historical research to go back and say, is this supported, is fascinating. And that was what it was, that moonshine.
Yeah, moonshines. Yeah. Yeah, and Taylor, yeah, she was our researcher and
Yeah.
that's another aspect of this. Like I'm definitely a history nerd and so one of my favorite things is finding out the actual history of these locations, and it's just so crazy that a lot of these places we walk past every day and we have no idea, like the place we're talking about, Moonshines, it's in downtown Austin and it just looks like this old building, it's in between like the Fairmont, this big fancy hotel, and all these like new modern places, but you would never know that that actually is one of the original locations from the compound when it was still Waterloo, when Austin was originally established. And like you would never know these things. So I feel like going back and finding all of that history just, I don't know, kind of brings these old locations and the people, brings them back to life, if you will.
Right. Whenever I go visit a new city, I always go on a ghost tour, because you actually learn the history of the city, and sometimes the more body history
Hmm.
of a city that's not going to be in, the local tourist center,
Hmm.
if you
Yep.
will. And so I definitely recommend people who are into history actually following paranormal investigators, because they have to do a lot of investigations to confirm if what they're finding is accurate. So
Yeah, we get the fun history.
yes. Oh my goodness. I love it. And I love that you are continuing to keep the investigations of not just Austin, but now you're going outside of Austin, because I actually learned a lot about Austin history through your podcast, like floods and things.
Yeah.
Like there was like a big flood. We actually went on, this was maybe 2 years ago, we rented a bus and we went to a jail and did a paranormal investigation with
Hmm.
you and the babes of the Real Ghost Sub.
Yeah, that jail was so fun. That was in Lockhart, right?
Lockhart
Yeah,
jail,
Lockhart.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have been on a paranormal investigation with you.
Yeah, well, we've been on a couple now because you came to
Oh my
the
gosh,
jail
that's right.
one, and you also came up to Fort Worth with us.
Oh my goodness, we did an overnight investigation, and I I was a little nervous sleeping overnight in a haunted location, but, that was really fun, and I remember this because I don't consider myself a very psychic person, and intuition, yes, but I don't see dead people, but I trust that other people have. I think we all have abilities. I think some people are more gifted in those abilities. That's the way that I always like to put it. But I remember we kind of went around and did all of our using my witchy tools. And
Mhm.
I was like, I'm feeling some feminine energy. I'm feeling like there may have been a lot of sex around here.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, Crimson, this was like a whorehouse, and I was like, "Oh, did we all know this? Because I promised I didn't investigate before because I wanted to not know the history." So,
Yeah.
um, and then I realized what we were investigating, and it all started making sense. But I like that even just through intuition, I was able to pick up on that. So that was
Yeah,
cool.
you totally nailed it.
And then y'all got the actual details of like the madams and the people working there and the customers and everything. It was really cool. I love
Mhm.
this stuff, but nobody wants to just hear me gush about how much I like paranormal investigation. So I want to kind of continue the conversation because even though paranormal is your gifting and a big hobby and something that you do have kind of like as a side hustle, as they would say, or a side interest. Your main thing is that you actually help people who are witchy and spiritual, and like kind of metaphysical creatives build their own either main businesses or side businesses. And you have an upcoming workshop called Bizcravt, and you have really like stepped into the space of being a business mentor for people who the regular bro hustle culture or the regular kind of corporate coaches probably don't have the insight into. And
Yes.
I think it's really cool. I'm always a big voice of like, you can have hobbies. Please do not think you
Mhm.
have to monetize everything of interest to you. And I know that you hold that. But I think we also have a lot of people who listen who were like, but I would actually really like the opportunity to maybe see what it would look like to take all of these maybe giftings I have or interests of mine and put it into a business. So
Mhm.
yeah, tell us about this.
Yeah. So, marketing, yeah, I've been doing it for entirely too long. Specifically online marketing. I started with a lot of like social media management, specifically Instagram is really my jam. But yeah, a lot of online marketing and online programs also. I'm very much, my kind of philosophy about all of this is really like building your business to actually support what you want your life to actually look like, because obviously, we're talking about the paranormal things, I'm traveling and doing these investigations, like that's something that's going to be a bit difficult to do if you don't have your normal, like your career, be able to support that. And so I am a big advocate for online offerings. And so, I know we have the Minx and Muse multiverse, which is online, and I just am really passionate about those things, but also just really working with other entrepreneurs, people who want to do their own thing on building and structuring their business in a way that is going to support their life. So we really like most business coaches, a lot of especially the like bro hustle culture, it's like you're only posting 2 times a day, you're not posting enough. You need to be posting 50 times a day on every single platform. I'm like, who has the freaking time for that? Okay, like you have a team of 50 people, dude. Like I have me. So I'm not doing that. And it's just so easy to get caught up in, you see everybody online doing all of these different things, right? And I'm doing these markets and I'm reading at this location and now I'm selling these things and now I have this online program and now I have, and it's just really easy to get caught up in the like, oh, well, I guess I should be doing this. I guess I should be doing this, especially like when you're in kind of those beginning stages of getting things built or, you're just not like fully established yet. And so that's why I'm just very big on like, no, like we're completely reversing this and we're starting with what do you want your life to look like? Okay, like do you want to be working 5 days a week? Because guess what? You don't have to be. Like, do you want to be working 4 days a week? Okay, great. Do you want to be working every week out of the entire month? Like, I don't. I would prefer to only work like 2 weeks out of the entire month, like what feels good for you? We're gonna figure that out first. And then you can reverse engineer a business structure from that is going to more so support what you want that to look like. So that's really like my zone of genius in there is doing that. And then, obviously once you have that in place, figuring out how to get the people in, the marketing strategy side of things. But yeah, just being really mindful of like what's going to actually feel good for you and how can we tune into that and what that looks like versus just allowing everything that we see online to kind of get in our heads and start getting into the like, well, I feel like I should be doing this, or I guess I should be doing that. I guess I'm supposed to do this. Like, no. Like, what feels good to you? Let's talk about that.
Well, I love like how we talked about you're bringing the feminine energy into the paranormal investigative world. It's also bringing this feminine energy into a career world, into a work world, which I think needs more influence like that. And that's why I wanted to talk to you about this because I feel like we are in the middle of a huge paradigm shift around everything. And I am biased, we are devotees of the dark feminine, but I truly feel that the dark feminine could have such a powerful influence that's going to be for the betterment of society at large when we can get into these historically predominantly masculinized ways of going about things. So we know in for example career, if you want to start a business you have to work 80 hours a week or you're supposed to be doing all of the things and your life has to look like this. And also no one would understand now adding the extra component of, oh, and I do spirit readings, or I am like a crystal dealer, or I am, some kind of, tarot, a tarot artist or something like that. Right. So, that just adds an extra level of like, I do not think traditional systems could support and would understand what that challenge looks like. Um, but I think I love that you have an interest in changing the paradigm of what work can look like and not from a disassociated, because I have seen some real out there people being like, all you have to do is work 3 hours a week and you'll make $1 million. Like,
Yeah.
I know that you were willing to have the conversations of like, would you like to live on less, to work way less and love what you're doing?
Yes.
And that's completely possible. But also you could actually make more by doing this strategy and still be really aligned soulfully with what you're putting out into the world. So there's that component of both, and that it's going to look different for everyone. And that in a world like the witchy spiritual world, where I feel like there's two polarities, it's either people are like, you should not charge for spiritual work and you should live in poverty, or you need to go to $10,000 retreats in Bali and have $1 million coaching programs. Like, where's the freaking middle ground for just people who have their senses about them?
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. And I mean, like in Creatrix, that's something that we've talked about a lot together too, is, especially like that pricing structure. I feel like God, my background is classical music too. And you have that whole like the starving artist thing, right? And it's like almost romanticized. And every industry kind of has their own thing. Like obviously the spiritual, like, oh, you shouldn't be charging for that. And that's so gross. Like, how could you do that? It's like we have it in any industry, but it's like, yo, like you don't have to romanticize being like starving and broke though. Like you can do these things, like everything's an energetic exchange. Like even if I'm doing a reading for somebody, that is still taking my time and my energy, and that's years of like training and practice that I've put into that. Like yes, that deserves to be compensated, and I'm sorry, but anybody who tells you otherwise is wrong. Like they're just wrong, okay? And like I think there's a line between how you communicate what you're doing, getting into like the ethics of things. Like there's still like obviously you want to be integrity in doing things. Like I'm never going to be like, oh, I'm going to come cleanse your house and remove all of the entities guaranteed for $4.99, like I'm not ever going to say that because I can't guarantee that. Like I'm not going to guarantee like certain results, or like I'm going to be realistic about things and say what I can actually offer. And the whole like, oh, I'm only working 3 hours a week and you can be a millionaire too, like no, I busted my fucking ass when I started this, and that's the reality. When you're first starting, you probably are going to have to work more. Like it is what it is, but it's all, it's just that fine line in communicating, like being in integrity and communicating what the reality of things look like. And I don't think, especially online, and especially in online marketing, it's so much smoke and mirrors. Like you'll see people who are talking about like, oh, I made $100,000 this month. Like, okay, but they're not telling you what their expenses are. They're not telling you what their lives look like behind the scenes. Like I've worked with so many like 7-figure entrepreneurs and been in places where you hear them talking about like the inner workings of these things. Yeah, a lot of them are fucking miserable because their lives are literally like 24/7. You're working. And if you look at their lives, a lot of them, like, they're either single or they've gone through a lot of relationship issues, getting divorced, they are divorced, or, they don't have kids. Like, you're okay, well, yeah, that's going to have a lot more like time probably than somebody who's a mom and has an actual like group of friends. It's just like the reality of what's behind the scenes is not always what is presented up front, and that is also something that I get real jazzed up about. I'm like, no, you need to talk about those things. Like that is doing it, that just feels so like fake to me. Like you're selling I don't know, like a dream. You're not selling the reality, and that also feels gross to me. So just really being in integrity with how you are communicating what it is you're offering and doing.
I feel like that reminds me of the spiritual world where like you meet people who are like preaching peace and love and compassion, but then they're like you see them like pulling a let me see the manager at Starbucks. I asked
Yeah.
for there's no caramel in this or whatever. This is a small and I asked for a medium. You like losing their shit. I always want to learn from people who are students of their work and embodiers of their work. And so just you saying like, I go on paranormal investigations, I go out and I do readings and I have this, um, I have a haunted museum. I'm speaking at conferences. I travel, and I also do have this online business that I'm very passionate about, and I can help other people free up their time. And that you honestly say, yeah, it's going to be more time up front, but you can be strategic about it. I see you living the life that you preach. And I'm always very skeptical to learn from people who are also trying to sell you on that dream, but are miserable,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times they're not going to talk about that too. It's the like,
Yeah.
we're gonna sweep this under the rug, but there's always signs. You can always tell, like it's just you kind of have to read between the lines between some things, like especially like in online business, online marketing, a big thing is people talking about income, like, oh, I made $25,000 in the last 24 hours, but they're talking about profit. Like okay, are you ever going to be upfront and disclose like what your expenses are? You know, are you going
Yeah.
to talk about how much you're spending in ads? Are you going to talk about the $100,000 that you put into ads to get that $25,000? You know,
Yeah.
like, no, we're not going to talk about that, you know?
I've heard that where people will be like, I made 50 grand, but they spent like 49 grand on, the expenses to get there, whether that's ads and support teams and all of that. And it's like, what? So again, it's that whole like the masculine, like, I just want to like show off kind of this final logical but I'm successful, right? Because I have this number where the feminine is dropping back in, like, but are you happy? Do you feel good? Is your health good? Do you have healthy relationships?
Mhm.
And so I love that you're showing up as a voice in, because a lot of people, and again, like we said, not everyone should be interested in becoming a business. It's not for everyone, but I love that for people who really do it. Like, I know you have a client who does human design. I want to
Mhm.
respect her privacy, but we love her, and has made like a human design business out of working with you, for example. And it's something that the world does need, businesses that are run in integrity in within spirituality. So
Yes, I totally agree. And I also, something that I also just want to note, because we've kind of like touched on it briefly once before, but it's something I've been thinking about a lot recently too, is like, even when we talk about the feminine in these things, I think there's also such a difference between like the love and light, woo woo, feminine versus the like what we do at the studio, which is the dark feminine. Like, no, like we're doing your shadow work. Like, we're not bypassing things, like we're actually getting into the root cause of them, and that is significantly different than the just like, oh, does this, what makes you happy, what brings you joy, like, yeah, great, that, but also like, are we doing this to like avoid something else, like there's a big difference. And that's the other thing that like I see so much too in this space, is a lot of the people who even talk about, oh, I take the feminine approach, like we're bringing feminine energetics to business, blah blah, it's like that's a lot of what they're doing. And I'm like, okay, like I guess like you can be, flowy and like what feels good to you, whatever, but like also if you're not doing that deeper work in addition to that, like I feel like that's just as bad, you know?
yeah, yes, you are just operating at such a half capacity. And it goes back to that delusional thing. And so I love that. I know that in your group program, like you do um like shadow work, like release work, journaling, things around like what is truly your mindset or your subconscious programming around this, and diving a little deeper about what do you truly desire versus like what does society tell you should desire, and hey, where do you need to like hold yourself accountable for some personal healing and transformation.
Yes, exactly. Which I feel like, I mean, coming from, I also have like gone through this, and it just is so distinct to me, even thinking about like when I first joined Minx, getting in tune with the like, okay, what do I even actually want? Like that when I first started doing it was just like, well, I don't know. Has anybody, like, I don't know if I've ever even thought about that. Like, I guess, sure, I've thought about that, like, thought about that.
Yeah.
But when you do, typically it's from that lens of like, okay, well, but then you have your, like, your family expecting all of these things of you. And then your teachers and the people around you are saying, oh, but you're so good at da 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 da, you should just keep doing that. And then you have the, like, the expectations of society and all of these other things that are kind of weighing in on it versus like doing the work where you're getting in there and like shedding all of these things and being able to get down to like, okay, well, this is me, like this is actually me, and this is what I want, free from all of those things, even just like doing that work, I feel like is so, especially for women today, is like not many people do that, and it is so like it is life changing.
Yes, I feel like so many people listening have got to relate to that of like, uh, that is so true. Like I felt like I got my degree in this, so I just had to continue, or I didn't want to let my family down, or I just think that I just always thought that it was the money that was the most important versus the work-life balance. Or, I've had a change in heart of like I picked a field that is just like emotionally draining to me and I don't want to do it anymore. And it's like you are a witch, okay? And as witches, we are the ultimate creatrixes of our life, especially as erotic witches. And
Mhm.
so only you can change that circumstance. No one is going to come in and change that for you, but you need to really understand what it is that you are wanting to move towards next. And so that's kind of like what you do. And so tell us about this upcoming workshop you have and tell us about Create Your Career real quick. And we make sure this is not like a sales seminar, y'all. I just want to let you know. But I know that you're doing this and I thought some people may be interested.
Yeah, so I'm doing a workshop. It's coming up on June 6th. I'm doing it live. So if you're hearing this before then, you can come join. If you're hearing this after, I will send out a replay. I'll just like put a replay up. But um and this is something, we worked together actually on kind of creating, and I wanted to make sure that it was, yeah, I'm very, when it comes to business stuff, like very tangible, very strategic. I want you to have like step by step, get off the call and have things that you can go implement and you're going to see a result from. I don't want this like fluffy BS on all the other webinars, like, oh, just believe in yourself. Like, okay, great. Like, fuck off. Like, thank you so much for wasting my time. So I wanted it to be a mix of that very like tangible, strategic business, you know, insight, but also combining everything that we're talking about and this, the witchy aspects of things. And so there is going to be, a visualization in the beginning for being able to actually tap into what are these things that I'm truly wanting, what is that ideal life looking like. And then we are going to do some shadow work journaling prompts to help us in at least identifying, what are some of the blocks and these subconscious things even that are probably coming up when we even think about achieving these things, because we're all going to have fears around them. Doesn't matter what stage you're at, we're going to have things. So identifying some of those and just really being able to like get in tune with that, and then using that information to then apply to those tangible business things that we're talking about, like reverse engineering your business structure and the pricing structure and all of that. We're going to use all of that information to then reverse engineer what really, like, to you, your ideal life and business, what that could look like for you to support what that life is looking like, even down to, your product suite, your offer suite, and like pricing structure. And, I'm very like, again, tangible. Like I want tangible, not fluffy BS, but, coming from that lens of, is this actually authentically aligned with what you desire and what your ideal life actually looks like? Because if it's not, guess what? Then we're building a business that you're going to fucking hate in like a year or 2 years, and you're going to be burnt out from it. And that is not what we want. That is the opposite of what we want.
Yes. So it is called Bizcravt and it's on June 6th. And I'll make sure we put a link in the show notes. And then also you have the last thing I want to share is you do have a monthly kind of like program membership thing called Create Your Career, which I love because within that container, you're also you're starting to do monthly channeling around like spirit channeling around the energy of the group. And you also just independently do sessions where you can channel for people who need help with around their business and things. And
Mhm.
so, and in Create Your Career is like a container for people who are starting off to create a new career for themselves. And you do specialize in those who are like a little more soulful and spiritually aligned. So, and I'm
Yeah.
sure you'll share about that on the webinar, but you feel free to tell us.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of Bizcravt, the workshop, but yeah, my signature program, I've had it since like 2018 actually, and it's that's Create Your Career, which we're now retiring. Actually, it's going to be Conjure Your Career.
Yes.
But all of the original material from Create Your Career will like exclusively be available inside of there, which is all of the work that I've done in my agency. I've had a marketing agency where we do branding, brand messaging, web design, SEO, social media marketing, all of these things. So all of that is actually going to be included. Like you can still get that inside of Conjure Your Career. But yeah, the new program, it's a monthly membership, and it's going to be very focused around accountability and like how are we growing our business, what are the tasks that I need to be doing every single day to make sure that my business, yes, is running but also is growing. And I would like accountability and support as I'm doing that. I want somebody to brainstorm with as I'm like trying to do this project and I don't know where the heck to start. I'm trying to grow my business, but how am I getting sales? How am I getting new leads in? It's really focused on that, growth aspect, but doing it in a setting where, yes, every month I'm going to do a channeled message for the energy of that month, what it's going to be good for, if there's anything that we need to be focusing on releasing that month. We have group office hours calls, co-working calls. And yeah, when I say accountability, it's going to be like I'm literally like bringing on somebody who's an accountability queen who actually is an OG from Create Your Career. And she literally, like, her whole thing is going to be just following up and doing accountability for people for like, are we staying on track with like your goals and these deadlines and these projects that we set, because I mean, especially like for me, freaking ADD, like if I do not have somebody doing that, like, I'm not going to get anything done, if left to my own devices, like I'm not doing anything, so yeah, I really want it to be a mixture of that. Okay, like we're approaching everything from this more, witchy spiritual lens. We have the channeling. If you want a card pull, we'll pull cards for you, whatever you need, but very tangible. Like if you're trying to grow your business, here you go. Like this is the community. We're going to make sure it happens.
And as a business owner, it can be really lonely trying to do this by yourself. So being in a container of other people doing it together is just really beautiful. So I love Conjure Your Career. I love that you are doing that. And I just, I just I highly recommend. I've worked with you. You've helped me out on some digital stuff as too, so I can vouch for you and your work, and that you don't just talk the talk, but you walk the walk. And that is, I think, new paradigm when you are learning from someone or trusting someone as a guide or a mentor. Are they walking the walk and not just talking the talk? And so, with Nicole, if you're like not into businessy thing, go check out her haunted museum in San Marcos, her and Damien's haunted museum. Check out the Real Ghosts of and the Parapeculiar podcast. Check out her paranormal investigation. See her out there living a really magical life beyond her work, because it's something that she enjoys doing. And if you are like, oh my gosh, I've been really wanting to try like starting a spiritual witchy aligned business, but I didn't know where to start. Now join for Bizcravt on June 6th. Check out Conjure Your Career for a container to do it with other people. So I know you are a multifaceted human, and I love that about you. And I got to pole dance with you yesterday. So it's like you really do all the things. So let's head into the questions that we ask everyone. So, wrap up questions. Starting, what is your personal mantra or source of daily inspiration?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this, and I know for me, in terms of mantras, like mantra affirmation, they change so frequently. So I
Yeah.
think inspiration though is interesting, and especially for me, as someone who, I am left completely to my own devices, and I'm sure you like feel this way sometimes too, Crimson, it can be hard when you're doing your own thing to stay constantly like inspired and motivated and feeling creative, so for me, and this is just a me thing, but I know whenever I am listening to other people's ideas and thoughts and their creativity, it generates those sparks in me. So one of my things that I personally really love to do, ideally every morning as part of my morning routine, is I do some sort of learning. Obviously, I do businessy things. So for me, it's listening to something business related, but whether that's a podcast or reading a little bit from whatever book I'm currently reading or watching a YouTube video, I like to start my day off with that because it typically will kind of get those creative juices flowing and the ideas flowing. So that is typically my daily source of inspiration.
That's beautiful. I think we are perpetual students of the things that we teach. So I love that you were invested in that on the daily. That's wonderful. Okay, what is your favorite sensuous indulgence?
I think, well, all of these probably change regularly, right? But right now I've been really into like very high quality pajamas and
Oh,
loungewear. I'm a big like texture person. So like even the dress I'm wearing right now, it's that like satiny, like
yeah, it's
silky feel,
so pretty.
so getting like pajamas that are just, they make you feel good, and you like walk past the mirror and you're like, okay, so just
Yes.
PJs and loungewear for even, something you always like to talk about, making the mundane magical. So taking something that, typically would just be like, oh, like an oversized old t-shirt or whatever, which if that is what makes you feel at your best, like you go for it. Right now, I've just been feeling the, cute little satiny PJ sets.
I love it. And Nicole's a Libra, and Libra's ruled
Yeah.
by Venus. So we're getting a little Venusian in there, which I love.
Yes, just Libra things.
And then finally, what does living fully in your power as a witch look like to you?
Hmm. I Obviously, the answer to this question is very layered and multifaceted, and I feel like there's so many aspects that go into this, but to keep it succinct, something that I think really encompasses, I mean, even everything that we talked about today as well. I think about one of Damien's nicknames for me is Pythia, like Oracle of Delphi, and something that they had written on the wall there, that people, back in the day, they would travel from all over the place to come, consult the Oracle. And on the wall, it said, "Know thyself." And I think that really just encapsulates all of this, when you can truly, like, actually, that like shadow work, getting to the like inner, free from all of these societal expectations, like, who actually are you? What is it that you actually want? What is it that you actually desire? Because once you know that, once you have that, that's a very clear roadmap to doing and creating the life that you want, your ideal life. Then it's just a matter of doing it, which obviously is where things get a little complicated, and having the like courage and the bravery to go through all of those scary things and shedding what isn't in alignment with that. Yeah, like not downplaying that fucking sucks. Like, it is very difficult, but yeah, that know thyself.
That's one of my favorite too.
Yeah.
Know thyself is why I truly believe it's so important that we use astrology
Mhm.
and do our shadow work and become sovereign outside of external expectations. So I love it. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for joining me for this podcast. It's been so wonderful chatting with you. It's NicoleRicardo.com,
Mhm.
at Nicole Ricardo on Instagram. And I will put all of these in the show notes as well. And hopefully some people will join you for Bizcravt in a couple weeks.
Yeah, come hang out with me. And thank you so
Yes.
much, Crimson. This was so much fun and just such an honor to come chat with you and be on here talking to all of your people who I very much love so much.
Well, you are one of our people, so it's just yes. So I'm sure a lot of people know you already, and I'm sure it's going to be awesome for them to learn about you from a new perspective. So thank you for taking the time, and thank you for everyone for watching or listening. Mwah!
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you for joining me for the Minx and Muse podcast. You can find show notes and learn more about the studio at www.minxandmuse.com. As a reminder, it is our birthright to transform, expand, and safely exist as sensual, conscious, and empowered creatures. I'll see you next time.